The island is on the edge of total chaos. An absolute apocalypse is paving the way for Season 2. Rifts are tearing open, and Ragnarok is coming straight for us. The finale of Season 1 is just moments away, which means now is the time to get ready for the live event. Season 2 kicks off on March 5th. With only a few weeks left, it's only natural to ask the big question: what's coming next? Even though we still have 2 updates before the season launches, the community is already focused on 2 things: how this season ends and what the next season is really about. Those questions are impossible to ignore. I've talked before about my theory around the Dark Voyager and where his story could be heading, but now it's time to zoom out and connect the dots. Because if the clues are pointing where I think they are, we're about to crash straight into a reality filled with Norse gods, ancient rituals, and something much bigger than anything we've dealt with lately. Before we can predict the full storyline of Season 2, we need to understand how the current season, Pacific Break, is likely to wrap up. At this point, I'm almost sure we're getting an event. Maybe not a massive end of chapter spectacle, but at least something on the level of a mini-event, similar to the Chapter 5 Season 1 Pandora's Box moment. A quiet ending just wouldn't fit the pace we're seeing. Look at how fast the Dark Voyager plot has moved. In just a short time, he's gone from hovering over the island to focusing on the 0-point shard, opening a rift, disappearing, and reshaping the lab area. That is a lot of major story movement in a tight window. When you compare that tempo to the Cube Queen storyline, it becomes obvious that Fortnite is building the same level of danger in far less time. And when Fortnite accelerates the narrative like this, it usually means one thing: a climax is coming. The story isn't going to just fade out. I think the final event will mirror the structure of the Chapter 5 Season 1 finale, but with a completely different purpose. This time, the Dark Voyager's focus will be the 0-point shards, and I believe his disappearance wasn't random at all. Fortnite has been showing us that he's more than a villain with a spaceship. He's a voyager between realities, and his mission is to gather the 0-point fragments scattered across different worlds and fuse them back together. Leaks have been hinting that the rifts tied to this storyline aren't all the same. The realities inside them have different colors, and there are 4 in total. To me, that feels like intentional foreshadowing. Each color likely represents a different reality, and each reality could set the tone for what comes next. Not just one season, but the roadmap for several seasons ahead. So why would he do any of this? The most likely answer is that he's doing it in the name of the last reality. And honestly, I don't think there's any doubt we'll see the last reality return in this chapter. Skins Survey have already been circulating that show crown wearing characters who visually echo the Cube Queen, but with a totally different design language. One of them looks chaotic and even has chrome-like elements, which feels less like coincidence and more like a warning. New rulers are coming, and they might not be alone. That also explains the Dark Voyager's behavior. He doesn't feel like someone improvising. He feels like someone following a plan, step by step, building toward a moment where multiple forces finally collide. In the event itself, I imagine we launch an assault on the Dark Voyager's ship. The objective would be to push into the core control area and shut the portal down from the inside. And yes, I think we'll succeed, at least on the surface. The portal will be closed, and the Dark Voyager will be forced back. But the celebration won't last, because by the time we shut it down, it'll already be too late. The rift will have done its job. Something from the other side will have made it through, and that's where the story takes a hard left. The guests that arrives won't be another variation of cubes. It'll be something mythic and something aggressive. A force tied to Norse mythology. The gods will seize key locations across the island and start imposing their own order before anyone can stop them. At first, the idea of Fortnite tying this to Norse gods might sound wild, but it becomes a lot more believable when you remember how Fortnite has been blending realities lately. We've already seen objects and threats cross between chapters in ways that prove the boundaries are thinner than they used to be. If the red cube can echo across timelines and appear again later, then an invasion that connects to the Ice King's past and older mythic power is not only possible, it's the kind of twist Fortnite would absolutely lean into. On top of that, the community has been hearing about a Norse-inspired season for a long time. And while leaks are never perfect, some of the same leak waves that mentioned this also correctly called other major story beats. So even if you take it with caution, you can't just dismiss it. The map itself also feels like it's whispering the same message. Certain terrain choices look like callbacks to older chapters. And some details feel placed on purpose. The giant bear tracks are a great example. On their own, they could just be set dressing. But in Norse mythology, bears are symbolic. They represent strength, warrior spirit, and primal power. When you combine those hints with the leak trail and the current storyline direction, it starts to feel less like random decoration and more like setup. Once the gods arrive, that's when Season 2's real story begins. They won't just show up and stand around like background characters. They'll take over, reshape the island's power structure, and prepare for the arrival of something even darker, the Nothing. And unlike past myth-themed seasons where the villains sometimes felt passive, this time the antagonists will move like conquerors. Odin and Thor won't be portrayed as heroic legends. They'll be invaders, working toward a goal that serves a larger and more sinister force. We'll fight back, of course. Jonesy and Hope will be at the center of that resistance, and we'll likely get a major early season battle where we try to stop the gods head-on. And we'll lose. That loss matters. Fortnite stories work best when the heroes get humbled first, because it raises the stakes and forces new alliances. The turning point will come around mid-season, when bigger names enter the picture. I think Kratos returns, and I also think Midas comes back. Fortnite loves its cycles, and Midas showing up during key Season 2 moments has basically become a pattern. If the island is facing god-level enemies, then bringing back characters with mythic connections and strategic influence makes perfect sense. Then comes the move that pushes everything toward the finale. Odin brings the Ice King onto the god's side. Whether it happens through manipulation, promises, or a bargain, it lines up with older leaks, suggesting the Ice King was always meant to be more important than what we've seen so far. As the season nears its end, the truth becomes unavoidable. Odin and Thor are building a portal designed to summon the entity they serve, the being we know as the Nothing. But the story doesn't end with them winning, because the real twist is the Ice King. The heart of the narrative becomes his decision. At some point, he realizes he's being used. He understands that serving the Nothing isn't just another war or another conquest. It's the end of everything, and he refuses to be part of that. During the summoning, right as the portal begins to open, the Ice King takes control. He redirects the portal, forcing Odin and Thor back into their own reality. And with the full force of his power, he seals them away, trapping them in an ice prison that they can't break out of. He saves the island, but it costs him everything. Why would the Ice King do it? To answer that, we have to look at his past and what his story has been building toward this whole time. And this is exactly where the developers are lining up a mind-blowing comeback for a legendary bad guy. According to data found in the game files, the boss with the codename Ice King is tied directly to the structure of Season 2, not the current game files. This explains why Epic intentionally put a hold on his skin and storyline during the OG season, leaving fans scratching their heads. His part is way more massive than just a nostalgic cameo, plain and simple. Plot-wise, this meshes perfectly with the idea that the Ice King is not just a winter character, but a mythical, almost Titan-level figure, which fits the lore of the icy world of Jotunheim and the coming Ragnarok like a glove. Considering many of you only jumped into Fortnite during Chapter 5 or 6, let's take a closer look at this figure. The Ice King is one of the most powerful yet tragic characters in Fortnite history, first showing up in Chapter 1, Season 7 as the ruler of Polar Peak. He arrived on the island inside a giant iceberg that crashed into the map, bringing his castle and an eternal freeze with him. For a long time, the community had him pegged as a straight-up villain who just wanted to destroy all life with cold, especially after he used a shard of Kevin the Cube to summon a massive ice storm that covered the entire map in snow and brought forth an army of ice zombies. The truth, however, turned out to be way more complicated. The king was actually a jailer and a guardian who had spent centuries holding a far more terrifying threat prisoner in his castle dungeons, the Fire King, also known as the Prisoner. All of the Ice King's attempts to freeze the island were desperate measures to stop the ice from melting and keep his enemy locked up, but the plan failed. As the temperature rose, the prisoner escaped, created a volcano, and kicked off a chain of events that changed the island forever, leaving the Ice King in history as the ruler who couldn't hold back the fire. So, the ruler's own story might give us a sneak peek at why he's showing up on the Chapter 7 island, Maybe to contain some even more sinister danger heading right for us? To understand exactly what is coming our way at the big finale of the current season, we need to look back at past events. The new island, where we now find ourselves, is Reality 266, which is indicated by the R266 inscriptions on the Battle Pass tab. The central point of this island, also called the Golden Coast, seems to be the Inner Loop Labs, because a fragment of the 0 point is floating in the air right there. This organization is pretty shady. It's not run by Hope and Jones, but is instead a place full of dark secrets and files with classified info on the 7, the 0 point, and the realities of Fortnite. Karina, Golden Coast local, certified I Know What I Saw energy, says Inner Loop calls themselves Guides of Information. But she's basically saying it the way you'd say, "Trust me, bro." She's always found them suspicious, and the hacked files back her up hard. Inner Loop has been here way longer than we have, which completely destroys the idea that Hope and Jones built any of this. And then you go under the island and boom, a whole particle accelerator sitting under Golden Coast like it's been there forever. Let's be real, nobody builds a particle accelerator in a few days unless they've got a time machine or a dev console. Even worse? It's probably powered by a 0 point shard that's just exposed. No containment, no shielding. Just raw reality juice on display like a museum exhibit. Normal island stuff, right? Inner Loop's labs give off heavy Last Reality vibes, the architecture, the colors, the whole Purple Doom aesthetic. But the tech itself runs like it's straight out of the Imagined Order playbook. Same type of gear, same cold efficiency, same energy. And there's also a connection to Dark Voyager, but the documents make it sound like he's not the top dog, more like a key piece on the board. Especially since Agent Jones shows up there, which basically confirms our heroes are somehow allied, or forced into cooperating, with Inner Loop. And that's where things get messy, because Jones doesn't hang around sketchy labs for fun. If he's there, it's either desperation, or a trap dressed like an opportunity. Going through the underground accelerator hits you with a refreshed version of that 0 point tunnel effect from Chapter 2, and the energy running through the machine is 100% 0 point energy. It's the same vibe, the same signature, the same "this could blow up reality if someone sneezes wrong" feeling. So yeah, something is seriously off, and Inner Loop is way too calm about it. Meanwhile, Hope's future visions? Cooked. Either clouded, weakened, or just straight up gone. Because the Last Reality now has control of the spirit realm, where those visions come from. They're basically running it like a VIP Loopers Club. You don't get in unless they allow it. During Chapter 5 and 6, they let Hope see fragments of the future so they could manipulate outcomes, basically using her like a human spoiler leak. But once Phase 1 was done, visions gone, access revoked. End of story. Hope thinks it's either a shard or a bigger darkness behind it, and that bigger darkness basically screams the Last Reality. At Classified Canyon, there's graffiti showing 3 huge purple triangles on an unfinished map, and it's not subtle at all. That's the kind of message you leave when you want people to notice. Fans are already running with the idea that Hope is now dreaming of the nothing, and honestly, with how heavy the symbols are this chapter, that theory isn't just fan paranoia. It's starting to look like foreshadowing with teeth. The main point of Classified Canyon is the bunker with a mysterious code, 7. This links directly to the Origin, the field tactician and commander of the 7, who was designated 7 on his IO prisoner outfit. Since the Origin was once the king of the cubes and the king of the Last Reality, and the Canyon bunker's triangular shape aligns perfectly with the Last Reality logo, the conclusion is that the Origin was imprisoned here. The 7 number suggests he was imprisoned in the 7th IO Research Center, which is the one we are now discovering in Reality 266. Regarding the 7, their latest known status suggests they are scattered across the universe following the Big Bang, with some lost. The Order is on the new island, the Visitor is alive, and the Foundation also did not die, suggesting they were not completely consumed by the Chrome. It's speculated that Dr. Sloan and Jones caused the Big Bang during the Chapter 4 OG season, which not only saved the 0 point from destruction, but also tore the 7 free, scattering them across the Omniverse. The Origin and the Scientist are presumed to still be chromed, while the Paradigm was imprisoned in the 0 point after initiating the Zero Fusion, and was later freed by the Big Bang. The Order's first message, found at a meteor site, confirms she detected an alarm signal from Agent Jones during a scan of the Battle for Reality 783, and upon arriving at the Chapter 7 island, she detected a high concentration of zero-point energy. Game files also show an updated version of the zero-point vault, suggesting the entire first season will focus on rebuilding the zero-point to its initial state, possibly leading Reality 266 to become the Zero Reality. The game's seasonal trailer also contains a terrifying message that, in addition to calling the entire Battle Royale Phase 1 of the plan, reveals Dark Voyager was in the base reality for about 8 years, the exact time since Battle Royale's premiere, meaning everything happening now ties back to the very beginning of the game. An emblem from a club founded in 2017 confirms the island's long existence. Agent Jones tells that the Seven convinced him to leave the imagined order and fight for a free island. He regrets not fighting when the Nothing sent the Herald to eliminate the Seven, but believes Dark Voyager's appearance gives him a second chance to oppose the Last Reality. Meanwhile, the Last Reality has been tinkering with the loop, causing the storm to change shapes, which will soon include a snowman, a diamond, a heart, and others. The loop itself still exists, and is confirmed to be stable for now. Finally, the Nothing's presence is pervasive in this chapter, with symbols on the walls, hopes, dreams, and strong connections to the TV distortions seen in the Chapter 7 trailer and past chapters. The final event of the last chapter directly impacts what's happening on the island right now. Jones's plan didn't end up being as reliable as a Swiss watch, but at the very least, we managed to defeat the Dark Presence. And at the same time, we freed a fragment of the Zero Point and Oninoshima in the process. The only catch is that the zero-point fragment yeeted us into a new reality, and as you might have noticed, that kind of transfer left a lot of loopers with a massive hangover. To really dive into all the twists, secrets, and character returns, I went through all the new storylines and came to one conclusion. There is some real weirdness going down on this island. We've got the simulation we were stuck in, a giant sphere floating over the island, aliens hiding in bunkers, film sets, and actors everywhere. So let's take it from the top, because for the first time in a long time, Epic's writers actually managed to surprise me. Instead of a clean slate, Epic has brought back one of the most powerful threats in the game, the Last Reality. They've just arrived on Golden Coast Island in a massive ship commanded by the Dark Voyager. A face, or more precisely a skull, OG loopers will remember from way back in Chapter 1 Season 3. Later, after the Season X reset, he showed up again as Eternal Voyager, and that's when we finally learned that under that helmet, there was nothing but a glowing skull. That pretty much confirmed he wasn't exactly human, though nobody expected him to come back 6 years later, now wielding the power to control the Golden Cubes. To understand why that power is such a big deal, we gotta talk about the Last Reality again, because this squad uses their cubes as foot soldiers with the plan of invading different realities, probably intending to hoard the entire universe for themselves. Back in Chapter 2 Season 8, we found out the Cube Queen was the leader of all of them, basically because she controlled the Golden Cube. In fact, during her mission to invade our island, she summoned her army, which is where we first saw this specific type of ship that is now hovering right above the Golden Coast Island. And actually, the one sitting inside it is the Voyager. With the arrival of this ship on the island, we also get the TV interference shown in the cinematic trailer, where we can read a message that the Last Reality probably meant to send to their own forces. In it, they say that their training and learning phase is complete, and that they've spent 8 years and 9 weeks in base reality, which is basically Battle Royale mode, since that's how long it has existed. According to them, this adds up to 106 billion years, because they're counting the fact that every 20-minute Battle Royale loop can have up to 1 million active matches at once. That's why the total amount of time is literally around 7 times longer than the age of the universe itself. However, during this process, we spotted 2 errors that came up for them. The first was the appearance of the Dark Presence, a villain that emerged from the spirit realm, something that, for now, exists only in the reality of 783. And by the way, he was already defeated in the final event, with Jones bringing in the entire army of collabs. With that victory, they also recovered the fragment of the Zero Point, and this sent Hope, Jones, and us to the new island, I assume to recover another part of the Zero Point fragment. If you don't know what this Zero Point is, let's just say it's like the heart of all the Fortnite islands. And at the end of Chapter 4, well, it exploded, and its fragments were scattered across different realities. This was the same event where Fortnite stopped being just a game and officially became a metaverse. With that cleared up, let's move on to the second error in the message: the anomalies. They had been contained, but with the Voyager's arrival on the island, they've been reactivated. That's exactly why, in every match, we get these random phases where anything can happen in the game. Finally, the TV also shows that Phase 2 has already started, and that a program encoded in human language has been executed. This is probably referring to sending the Voyager to the island. Still, we're left wondering what exactly he's going to do. The thing is, when we talk to Hope about it, she has no idea what this ship is planning to do next. In fact, she also confirms that Daigo and Kendo stayed behind to protect Oninoshima after we helped them save it. This reinforces the idea that when it saved us, the fragment took only us and not the whole island. So I understand that this isn't an error. It's meant to let us help recover the remaining missing pieces. And if you're wondering where that first fragment is now, it's in our possession and is currently being investigated in one of the new zones on the map. With all this, we'd already have plenty to theorize about, but luckily, Fortnite officially showed us this notebook with a reference to the movie Kill Bill just before Chapter 7 started. In it, we see the Imagined crossed out and the Foundation being written in. These two are characters who are part of the team known as the Seven. This group was formed to defeat an organization called the Imagined Order, which is led by Gino, a character who hasn't even appeared in the game yet. We've only seen him in the comics. And by the way, the comics are also where the Imagined dies, which is why she is crossed out in the notebook. This organization also had the Zero Point under its control and used it to trap all the loopers on the island, forcing them to repeat a loop every 20 minutes and lose their memories after finishing it, something the Seven didn't like. That's why a war started between the two sides, which ended with the Seven's victory in Chapter 3, Season 2. It was in the very next season that the Herald invaded the island in the name of the Last Reality. She had the power to turn people into chrome, and with that, she managed to defeat almost everyone from the Seven. However, a year later, Jones and Sloan joined forces and went back to the past to prevent all the events I just listed. This would explain why the Seven are alive now. When they generated this multiverse, they were also thrown to different locations in the various realities, just like the fragments. For the moment, the only member of this group we know is on this Golden Coast island is the Order, since she left this audio log near the drop pod she arrived in. In these logs, she makes two things very clear. First, we aren't the only ones chasing the fragments. This could mean that in this chapter, we'll also have another rival, like what happened last chapter with the Dark Presence. Second, the Seven are not exactly going through their best moment anymore. In other logs, she mentions the Scientist, another one of her teammates who is known for being the smartest in the group, and even she doesn't know his whereabouts. This supports the theory that each member ended up in a different place and we don't know where. In fact, this makes sense when talking about the original visitor, who, after the Zero Point explosion, could have traveled to the OG reality, which is the same as hers, but taking place in 2025. Anyway, the Order will leave a fourth audio log in the coming weeks, where she'll try to send a message to call the rest of the team to come help her face the Dark Voyager. And actually, going back to him, we have to remember the list of names, where we also saw that the second note was the bus driver, something he has already achieved. Although, during the last week, we did quest to rebuild the bus. As for the rest of the names, I personally have no idea what they could mean. They might refer to the real names of the Seven members, or even to future protagonist skins for upcoming battle passes. And speaking of that,